There are many planets out there that have very similar names, like Tatooine and Dantooine, and then there's all the primes and minors, and then there's the planets that have a 4 or a 3 after their name because they're a moon, like Yavin 4. Well, here is another set of planets that all share the same name, Ord. They all start with the abbreviation Ord, and there's actually a really good reason for that, which is a really interesting part of galactic history, and I'm going to be trying to cover all that on today's episode of Star Wars Nerds and Geeks. Like I said, there are a lot of planets that have Ord at the beginning of their name. There's planets like Ord Bueri or Ord Can Free. That sounds like Ord Carefree, like you can do whatever you want there. There's Ord Lonesome, which is seems like a very sad place. Ord Pyros, Ord Torrens, Ord Galapraxis. There's Ord Thodin, there's Ord Tessabuk, there's Ord Vaxel. I can't make this stuff up. These are real planets in Star Wars. Those are all planets that are really, really weird names, but probably never heard of them because they haven't been mentioned in TV shows or movies. But there are some that are actually mentioned in the film Star Wars industry. There was Ord Cestus, which was mentioned once in a Clone Wars episode. And then there's Ord Mantell, which was mentioned in the beginning of Episode 5, Empire Strikes Back.
Yes, Your Highness.
I thought you had decided to stay.
Well, the bounty hunter we ran into when Ord Mantell changed my mind.
Han, we need
So these aren't very out there planets, but they all have been mentioned and they all do actually exist. There's a planet, and I swear I'm not making this up. There is a planet called Ord Mantell, which, yes, was named after the bat-like creatures that live on the inside of giant space slugs. It was named after them. There's a planet in Star Wars named after Minox, and it has the abbreviation Ord in front of it. As a matter of fact, there are actually 62 planets in the Star Wars galaxy that have the abbreviation Ord in front of them, which is crazy that there are just so many planets. And why do they all start with the abbreviation Ord? Well, there's actually a really good reason for that. It dates all the way back to 13,000 BBY, under the rule of Supreme Chancellor Constipation, who was not named after a miracle drug that can cure constipation. Has your lack of ability to dump been a cause of concern lately? Well, fear not, introducing Constipation, the galaxy's first most effective constipation drug. Just take this twice a day and you will be A-OK. Fear the toilet no longer. Side effects may include death, murderous habits, the desire to commit mass genocide against a group of relatively harmless beings, and or slight abdominal pains. Constipation, for all your pooping needs. Chancellor Constipation led a crusade against aliens called the Pius Dea Crusades in a time called the Pius Dea era. So during this time, the Republic was expanding out through the galaxy, and they're trying to colonize as many worlds as they can. However, they realize that as they colonize, they don't have the means to protect their citizens, and so they decided to create planets called Ords, which is the abbreviation of Ordnance Regional Depots. And what Ordnance Regional Depots were is they were military outposts in the galaxy that were used to protect citizens of the Republic that were colonizing worlds from the dangers of the galaxy. They were designated to protect these colonists, mostly human colonists, that just spread out into the depths of space. So you can find these all over the galaxy, and basically what they were is they were just planets that their sole purpose was to be a military outpost where the Republic could send troops and they can forward supplies and they can bring ships and they can send scouts and they can put diplomats, and that's just like a safe place for people in the Rim. It's kind of like an embassy in the real world. You know how all these different countries have embassies in other countries, and like say you're an American and you're visiting France and something happens in France that endangers you, you can go to the embassy and you can go to the US embassy and they'll protect you. This is kind of the same thing. These are the embassies of the galaxy. But is that all they were? Just embassies of the galaxy to protect the Republic citizens from the threat of the galaxy? Well, yes, but also no. See, this touches on a topic of speciesism that the Star Wars galaxy has been struggling with for its entire existence, basically, where it's humans against aliens, really, where the humans have been spreading out everywhere and killing all the native aliens and dominating them and enslaving them and whatnot, and the aliens are being subjugated. Some of them will fight back, some of them won't. Some of them are dangerous, some of them are not. But it's just like an overall humans versus aliens. And this is a big example of that. This was a way to protect colonists from aliens and the dangers of the galaxy, but it was also a part of Chancellor Constipex's anti-alien crusades. And I'm never gonna get tired of saying Contispex. It's such a weird name. But here's a quote from Mr. Contispex himself that just proves my point. Let me get on my best Contispex voice. Here we stand at the extremity of our exertion, having cast behind us the idols of our fathers, to once again carry to our foe the penalties due to the sacrilege. Come perdition or hard vacuum, the Republic expects that every citizen will do his duty. And what that quote is saying is, on a base level, he's saying that we have to carry the mantles of the people that came before us, and we have to carry them forwards. We have to colonize the galaxy, and we have to, anyone that stands in our way, we will obliterate them, and we expect that everybody will help us do this, even in the face of death, that you all help us do this, which is an interesting message. But the more interesting thing comes when you dig a little deeper and you realize the anti-alien message that he is promoting. And here's an example of it. He says, to once again carry to our foe the penalties due to their sacrilege. Sacrilege is defined as to violate or to disrespect or to disregard that which people regard as sacred. So he's essentially saying that the aliens are dissing them, that the aliens are savages, and that the aliens have to die because they stand in our way, which is not actually true at all, because the aliens were actually under attack by the humans, not the humans under attack by the aliens. But yeah, that's all just like really interesting that these planets, they were set up to defend the humans against aliens, but in actuality, most aliens weren't actually a problem to the humans, at least in my opinion. There were some aliens out there that were threats to humans and that were actually trying to bring harm to the humans, but in my opinion, most of the aliens did not hurt the humans, and that the humans were making a bigger deal out of it than it actually was. And so these planets that were set up to defend the humans from aliens were actually secretly or subterfugely or subtly, they were planets that were actually to promote anti-alien ideals and to give the humans a way to attack the aliens. That instead of protecting the humans from the aliens, it was more to help the humans attack the aliens. That the aliens weren't the problem. The aliens weren't hurting the humans. It's to help the humans hurt the aliens. And it's really interesting that this thing that has such a that was meant for good ended up actually really harming the native populations of all these planets of the galaxy. There were so many species that were just completely wiped out by the Republic during the Pius Dea era and before and after that time, that were just killed off by the Republic, never to be heard from again, because the Republic felt threatened by them and whatnot. I could go on and on about how the Republic and the Empire later were definitely like anti-alien, and how their anti-alien bias was really harmful to the alien population. Like how in the Republic there were worlds that were majority populated by aliens, but they were ruled by humans, and then in the Empire, worlds that were alien dominated were classified as expendable, stuff like that. That just show that the Republic doesn't really care, that the galaxy doesn't really care about aliens, because they are all human dominated, that the galaxy is controlled by humans and they decide what happens. And so sometimes aliens get their way, but more often than not, there are people like the constipation drug Constipex that will end up promoting anti-alien ideals and will purge the galaxy of certain alien species, and will set up ordnance regional depots to protect the humans from aliens, even though the aliens weren't actually a threat. And so that is the dark history behind all the planets with the abbreviation Ord in front of their name. Now, what I find interesting is that this dark part of galactic history can also be seen in the history of our own world. And I find it really interesting, but it also makes sense because Star Wars, like all good pieces of fiction, have a little bit of truth in them. They come from history. It's one thing that I enjoy about Star Wars is that it comes from history, that it uses history and kind of creates a story based off of that. How it takes what happened in our real life history and it turns it into like a fictional piece that happens in this own fictional world. And I think that's really interesting because if you follow along with the story of Star Wars, or with any of these fictional pieces that are based off of um, that aren't based off of history but have similarities to history, if you follow them through, you can kind of see a way for like a prediction of our own future. I don't know. I just think that's really interesting. How like you can see mirrors between our real world and the fictional world of Star Wars, and you can use that in your own life to figure stuff out. I think, at least. I don't know. That's a topic for another video. This is Star Wars Nerd and Geek signing off. See you all next time.